to count you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a half. I'm the half. I'm half here and half there.
Oh, half here.
We always get worried this time of year because we think the church is dying, but what's happening is people are having fun.
You mean
Church isn't fun?
away from here, they're having fun?
Yes.
Did we leave him John?
They're having fun somewhere else. How's my face?
Perfect.
Good. I mean on the camera.
Let's ask Cheryl.
So, today's sermon is part 2 of the last sermon I gave 2 weeks ago on the cosmic body. Thought I would continue on with that idea. What?
You're too far over that way.
I'm going to be standing right
You
here.
could be in the middle more. Oh, that's better. Or you could
Okay.
just move the camera.
Who was it? Trevor, last week. I got you just right, and then you go, well, you know, and then now your face is like this, and then I set it over there, and you go, you know, I really want to talk over here. This thing ought to be over, back another foot.
Oh.
But anyways, we're gonna just put up with this beautiful camera that we have sitting here recording this. So our body is a temple of God. Remember that we were talking about this. And the crown is the head. It's the crown. Actually, a crown. When you feel your crown light up, it's a circle. The point of 100 meetings is here, right in the top back. But the crown is here. When that lights up, it feels like you're wearing a crown. Very heavy sometimes. So that's where it gets its name. Why did kings wear crowns? Well, we're getting into another topic. You know, it was a symbol of their power, and they felt power coming from all that gold lighting up their crown chakra. Definitely did that. So the rest of our body, though, is the courtyard and the middle chamber. Now, the courtyard of King Solomon's temple, or let's go back further to the tabernacle, that was the fence they put around the whole thing. And then in the middle, they had a tent. And in the tent, there were 2 rooms. In one room, they had the prayer altar, the candlesticks, and this is where they had what became the, you know, that was the bread and the wine that they served every week as part of Shabbat in the temple. Anyways, that's the middle chamber. Next to it is the Holy of Holies. So the Holy of Holies, that's the crown. And then the middle chamber in the courtyard is where they did all the rituals. And in our body, it's the same. There are rituals to be performed in this body that I'm calling the cosmic body. And they have a purpose. The purpose is to heal and release those parts of this body temple that no longer serve your highest good. Things that darken some of the anterooms and remote hallways of this temple body, which is you. But this body is not all that you are. Why is that? There is only one infinite body. That's why. And our mutual coexistence cannot be ignored or overlooked, for it is real, and the rituals performed therein are real. You cannot work on your own inner world without affecting every other corner of creation. That makes these rituals very powerful. What are these rituals? Let's name a few. Number 1, the ritual of compassion. A story. I sat quietly looking inward, seeing nothing. There was a raging river nearby. I barely noticed it. A waterfall, powerful beyond comprehension, was the main focus from the bench where I sat, perched, it says. I took a breath. It might have been the first for a while, breathing out in the way of looking at nothing. I heard the sound of feet scraping on gravel. Someone approached. I took another breath and opened my eyes. A boy stood there looking at me, curious, intently curious. He glanced at my lunch sack. Just a moment, not impolite in the least. Yet in that moment I knew, as brief as the moment was, I knew that he was hungry, more than hungry. I opened my sack and pulled out a sandwich and said to the boy, I brought this to feed to the birds. I don't see any birds asking. Might be because this is a Reuben. I don't know of any Reuben eating birds. Do you want it? Yes, I want it. I smiled and held it out to him. He sat down and took his first bite before he even got it out of the wrapper. "Do you have a name?" I asked in a teasing way. He took a second bite. Not at all interested in replying until the eating was done. I leaned back against the bench, closed my eyes. I heard the sound of paper being crumpled into a ball and the sound of the paper bag being opened. I smiled. There was an apple, another treat I had brought for the birds, in the sack. I heard the sound of the boy taking his first bite from the apple. It was a good apple from my own orchard. It made a sharp, crispy sound as his teeth cut through it. The sound of chewing followed. I opened one eye and looked his way. He gave a coy look as if he was saying, "And this is for the birds too," I guessed. Then he made a good imitation of a laughing kookaburra, or something like that. You get the idea, okay? He went on eating the apple. I couldn't go back to my meditation. The boy was too interesting, entertaining, caught my attention. He wasn't less than nothing. "Jazz is my name," he blurted out as he dropped the core into the bag with the crumpled paper. "Really? A good, strong name for a bird. Jasmine Undo, then. That's the full name. Gift from God," I said almost to myself. The boy looked taken aback, just a little. "That's what your name means. Didn't you know? Gift from God. It's an old Persian name. Where do you live?" He laughed outright over that question for some reason, then straightened his shoulders and said, "The Route 99 bridge over Manacoa River. Sorry, I don't know the zip code." "That explains your appetite." I looked at him for a long moment. "My name is Bill Hampton, and I have a spare room." "It's just the thing for a bird to roost in." I cocked my head and waited for a response. I didn't know a mouth could spread that wide. You accept?" I prodded. "How much?" He held his breath. "Nothing." I held my hand out to shake his. Like making a pact, we shook 3 distinct shakes, then a release, like a ritual. "How old are you?" "About 18. "Really? You look younger." "Okay, I'm 16, he blurted out and looked down at his lap. "Well, I'm barely 19. But I inherited the house from my father who passed recently." "Now what?" Jazz asked. "We wait for the sun to set. That won't be long. Then we can go home." That was ritual number 1, compassion. Now, ritual number 2 is the ritual of gratitude. Sandy Greenberg, I've quoted him before. It was a lovely book, and this is another quote from him. "Look at the hand of my wristwatch as it moves past each second. My rabbi once told me, once past, each second is gone. It will never return." Those words now overcame me with staggering force. Time lost, opportunities squandered. I had seen my widowed mother's tribulations, particularly in my youngest years, her tireless efforts to care for her ailing mother and to protect her children. She rose early to take us to school, caressed us tenderly, then went off to labor at the aircraft factory. We're all about the same age, aren't we? So perhaps our parents too fought in the Great War, and wives had to go off and work. But returning home, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with this one, I don't know why. So, returning home, she had performed countless household chores. But, how often did I sit down, look into her eyes, and ask her how her day was, or, much less, ask her about her deepest cares? Now it was too late. The seconds had gone, never to return, just as my rabbi had warned. Number 3, the ritual of honesty. Okay, a teacher was quizzing her students about the products manufactured in a factory nearby, and she says, "Who can tell me what's made in that factory, in that plant?" And she's pointing out the window. You can see the factory right there out the classroom window. Oh, a small boy quickly raised his hand and named a number of the products. The teacher, amazed at his answer, said, "That's correct, but how did you know?" "Oh, that's easy," the boy replied. "My father works there, and that's what he brings home every night in his lunch pail." So, this may seem humorous, and it is, but it carries some serious consequences. The boy had unwittingly disclosed the dishonest acts of his father. Also, the boy, erroneously, had been taught by example that such an act was all right. The family moved from the city to a small town, and a while later the husband wanted to clear off some small trees and brush, so he went to the hardware store and rented a chainsaw. And he said to the owner of the store, "It's Saturday and I'll be done after you close today, so I won't be able to return it till Monday, so how will you know how many hours I used it, since you rent by the hour?" The store owner said, "Well, when you return the chainsaw on Monday, I will ask you how many hours you used it, and you will tell me." Here's a story by a coach in a junior high school. Did you work in a junior high or high school?
High school.
Well, you can imagine what the younger ones were like squirrely versions of the bigger ones. Today was test day and climbing the rope. The boys climbed from a standing start to 15 feet high. One of my tasks these past few weeks was to train each boy to be able to climb the rope in as few seconds as possible. So, for 3 years, Bobby had trained and dreamed of breaking the school record. It had been his consuming passion. It seemed his whole life depended upon owning this record. In his first attempt, Bobby climbed the rope in 2.1 seconds, tying the record. On the second try, the watch stopped at 2.0 seconds, breaking the old record. But as he descended the rope, and the entire classroom gathered around the clock to check the watch and check what it said, I knew I must ask Bobby a question. There was a slight doubt in my mind whether or not the board at top had been touched. If he had missed, it was so very, very close. Not more than a fraction of an inch. And only Bobby knew the answer. "Bobby, did you touch?" I asked. If he said yes, the record he had dreamed of since he was a skinny 7th grader and had worked almost daily would be his, and he knew I would trust his word. With the class already cheering for his performance, the slim boy shook his head no. So, here I go again. Sorry, this is not my day. And so, in a simple gesture, and in this simple gesture, I witnessed a moment of greatness. I turned to Bobby and said, "Try again. This time, I want you to jump a few inches higher on the takeoff. You're going to break this record." Bobby stood before the rope. A strange Stillness came over the gymnasium. 50 boys and I were breathlessly set to boost Bobby to a new record. He climbed the rope in 1.9 seconds. A school record, a city record, and perhaps close to a national record for a junior high school boy. When the bell rang, I walked away, now misty-eyed, from this group of boys, and I was thinking, Bobby, at 14, you're a better man than I. Thank you for climbing so very, very high today. Now, this one doesn't get any better. I'm sorry, I picked all the wrong stories. Number 4, the ritual of perseverance. Long distance runner John Stephen Akwari represented Tanzania in the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City. How many of you recollect that taking place?
When?
1968.
1968 Summer Olympics, Mexico City. Remember the one that was too high and that the people had all trained at sea level and they were flaking out up there near a mile high?
Yeah.
I was only 7, so I don't remember.
Anyway, that's the one. That was Mexico City, 1968. I know it sounds like just 10 years ago in my memory. But this man, John Stephen Akwari from Tanzania, he made an unforgettable performance in the marathon. He did not set a world record. He did not even get a medal. And in fact, by the time he had crossed the finish line, the sun had set. The winner had been crowned an hour before, and most of the fans were gone. Just a few remained. But Akwari's performance still inspires us to this day. Early in the race, while jockeying with other runners for position, Akwari was knocked down and badly injured his knee and shoulder. He had every reason to pull out, just as 18 of the 75 others did by the time the race was over. But a voice called from within to go on. And so, he went on. A cheer rose up from the small crowd that welcomed Akwari as he limped across the finish line in last place, the makeshift bandage on his knee flapping in the wind. He was fatigued, cramping, dehydrated, and disorientated, but he had finished. When asked why he continued running when he knew he had already lost, Akwari replied, "My country did not send me 5,000 miles to begin a race. It sent me 5,000 miles to finish a race." Perseverance. Now, for number 5, the ritual of grief. A Catholic father was speaking with a mother who had lost a baby girl years ago to a birth defect. The unresolved grief had destroyed her marriage and had taken her almost to the point of suicide. At the climax of the story, she cries out to the priest to give her a reason, any reason, why she should not take the pills in her hand. The priest said, and I love the honesty of this response, "I don't know why your daughter died. I don't know why God allowed it to happen." "Then what do you know?" She cried out in anguish. "I know that God knows what it's like to lose a child." Now, he said, looking into her eyes, and I know that he's standing next to you, and he loves you, and he loves your daughter, and if you will let him into your heart, you will see her again. In this moment, the woman was finally able to take steps toward healing. It makes a difference to know a God who grieves. Ritual number 6, the ritual of love. A friend of mine was in mourning. Her husband of 50 years had died. To help my friend through this, I began walking with her each Thursday morning, hoping to cheer her up. After all, what are friends for? Well, one time we were walking along through a lovely oak grove that day, chatting about nothing in particular. I was pleased to note that my friend was no longer wore that gloomy, long face, but was quite cheerful. In the course of a conversation, my friend asked what I was planning for dinner. Well, I said, Jim has been asking for chili. And I'm just not just any kind of chili. It has to be made from an old family recipe. The thing is, I don't feel like shopping for all the ingredients needed, some of which are hard to find. And it takes quite a while to make. I'm just not in the mood. Maybe one of them had to be imported from Brazil. They don't sell it here. Who knows? Some things are hard to find. Suddenly, my friend stopped in her tracks and faced me. Oh, I stopped too. What else could I do? And she said quietly, make the chili. We continued to walk. It took me a few minutes to realize that she was not talking about dinner. It was about going out of my way to do something for someone I love, because at any moment they could unexpectedly be taken from me. I made the chili. Let me return to the story of Bill and Jess. I'll tell you, I'm going to pick boring, solemn, unentertaining stories from now on. Next week. No. Jazz and Bill. Bill is the one talking to us in his mind. I settled back in my quiet inner world to wait for the sunset, with one eye on the boy. He was fidgeting at first, but then began to relax and took several deep breaths. His eyes closed next, and a smile appeared on his face. He was swinging his feet back and forth under the bench. They began to slow down, then stop. A while later, it might have been 10 minutes, not more, Jazz nudged me in the ribs. If you don't open your eyes, you'll miss the reason for waiting, he said. The sun is about to set. I opened my eyes and focused on the sun as it dipped behind the mountain. The valley we were sitting in suddenly went dark. Jazz scooted over, so our thighs were touching. His hands were in his lap. But just as when he had arrived, I knew he wanted to eat. I knew he wanted a hug. What an odd boy, I thought. I raised my arm over his shoulder and pulled him to my side. He shuddered as he settled in, leaning his head against my body, making an imprint there, on my body as well as on my heart. Number 7, the ritual of grace. One more ritual comes to mind. Grace. Grace of our Creator descending as a light from heaven, which warms us, is the same grace which we receive from each other as we strive to perform these healing rituals. Like the stars dancing around the heavenly pole star, we are many parts magnetically drawn to each other. We cannot escape the influence of each other's orbiting circulations of light and darkness. Let us, all of us, make it a high priority to use these healing rituals I've mentioned today, and many others unnamed, as a blessing to the world and a light which fills our mutual infinite body with grace. Now I have a song for you.